Hey guys, today we're going to cover how to scale your company beyond 10 grand a month. And I brought Fabian, who's great brain behind scaling and building systems. And I'm really excited to talk to Fabian because he built CDO. We worked on CDO together to build it. Now we're working on AceMakers, and I can see his amazing potential in building systems and structures. And I think this is something that a lot of people are lacking when growing their company. So at early stages, it doesn't seem so important, but once you cross that approximately 10 grand a month mark, it starts to be essential to turn everything into systems. And that's probably the only way how you can scale. And so thanks, Fabian, for being here today on AceMakers show. I just want to jump into understanding first, how did you get to this this mindset into building systems? How are you seeing everything as a system? So there's certain things that we work on, there's certain processes that don't seem like a system, or they don't seem like something you could turn into a system, and a lot of people have problem with it. I consult, for example, a landing page agency, and they have a problem because the founder is the genius behind figuring out what is that content of the landing page that converts. And there is so much art that he's putting into his work, but somehow you're able to processize things like that. Can you share how did you discover this superpower inside of yourself? Did you always know that, or what's the background of this?
Sure. First of all, thanks for inviting me and having me here today. I'm happily sharing some insights of mine, and hopefully they're helpful to others as well. I think before I answer your question, I think we need to make sure that the word systems is understood correctly, because it's a broad term and people might ask, what should I do with the systems building a startup? Is that not like we're not building machines, right? But actually we do. And when we talk about system, or when I talk about system, it is about systemizing every process that there is in your business to actually make it repeatable and scalable. Now, you asked me how I came up with it. No, I was not born with that. I think a majority of that skill came from my consulting time, and another part came from when I was actually building CDO. Why consulting time? I think working in management consulting is a unique experience, because you really get to know what ownership means, what diving into a topic means. Because whenever you deliver something where you're not fully that you don't fully understand, your boss is like kicking your ass. He's basically asking exactly the right questions to tell you, look, you didn't do your homework. And this granularity helped me then while building CDO. And we got to a point, which everybody does, where you cannot do everything yourself anymore. You need to start thinking about delegating, thinking about hiring people, thinking about making processes and tasks repeatable and scalable. And this is where these systems come into place. And it only works if you have a clear structure for each of these tasks, if the processes are clear, so everybody can follow it, or your team can follow it. And it's also the only way you can actually measure whether your team is performing according to your standards or not. So yeah, it was a mix between the consulting world, which taught me the basics, but now then with CTO, where I actually got to implement it myself.
And so what are the examples? So you present something, and then what would that boss say? You don't need to refer to any secret client project, but can you give some examples of what kind of feedback did you get?
What kind of feedback from whom?
From your boss in consulting world, when you prepared something, and then you were feedbacked about this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to mention a specific example, but imagine building this huge Excel financial calculation sheet and bring it together, the results or the key results on one slide, and you present it to your client or to your boss, and you have the boss looking at this compromise slide and asking one question, and then you're sitting there and you cannot answer it because obviously the system behind it was so complex. So you wouldn't have expected that he's asking exactly this question, but in the end, he's actually doing. So it taught me to think to already when I prepare something, to already think in the perspective of the viewer and the perspective of the one who actually receives my result. And once you know that, you start early in the process. You start asking questions like, does this make sense for the one who sees it? What is important for the one who sees it? And this really lets you dive deeper into your work and really makes you really understand what you're actually doing. It's ownership. It's being responsible for your task fully. If you cannot answer these questions, there's something wrong because you have completed the task. You have created this analysis. You have created that slide. So everything on there, you must be able to answer to answer if there's a question.
So you're asking yourself a question when you create something like this. Do I fully understand it, right? Do I fully understand it from every angle? If I'm the person who looks at this for the very first time, do I really understand the whole story?
Yes. I mean, put it into a different perspective. I'm not asking myself whether I understand it. I'm asking if somebody who looks at it at the first time and only sees this information, does he get what I want to say? This is super important because obviously I know more about this specific topic because I've created an entire analysis behind it. I've done LinkedIn outreach the entire days, but when I present my results, what kind of questions do people ask, and can I answer these questions? This is the question I'm asking myself when I'm working on something. And this is also the skill, I call it ownership, the skill I require from my teammates.
And you're really the brain behind a lot of frameworks in AceMakers, or even recently we were working on the KPI tracking sheet, and then I was able to just put something together, but it didn't have a consistent story. And then you looked at it and you figured out that, hey, this doesn't have a consistent story. There is no logic in this. Like this funnel doesn't convert into this revenue. It doesn't then show another funnel. Then it doesn't show the sum of the revenue. Then it doesn't take churn rate into consideration. So you're thinking about this as a logical respective order of things that are happening to present to somebody. Do you think of this as a funnel? Do you think of this as a story?
I think it's neither of them is true. Taking this example with the sales KPIs, the structure made sense in your head, but it didn't make sense in my head because I never looked at it. So when I do something, I always try to remember what is the easiest way somebody would look at it. And if you, for example, have a sales, like these sales KPIs, right? So if somebody would look at it, it's always the funnel. What's the first step in the funnel? It's getting leads into the funnel. What's the last step of the funnel? It's getting client signs and all the steps in between. And then you suddenly have a structure from top to bottom that everybody understands because everybody knows that this is the funnel. Even if you don't know the funnel, with if you are a bright mind, you would guess, okay, these would be the steps that I need to actually close a client. This is the structure that I'm looking for. Keep it easy, keep it in structures that people would know anyways, even though they had nothing to do with the topic itself.
So for example, in terms of sales KPIs, it would make sense to present this as a funnel, right? But in other cases, it might make sense to present it in a different way, in a different story. So for example, you're also the brain behind taking all the know-how we have on figuring out the offer, the know-how you have, the know-how I have, the know-how that our clients have, know-how from books. And then you've combined all of this into this amazing framework in AceMakers to figure out your offer. For somebody who's just brainstorming about their business idea, maybe they want to quit a job. And then now it's such a perfectly logical step-by-step process to figure out what really makes sense for you as a new person starting a business to offer on the market. So how did you construct that story? What did you think makes sequential sense? How did you organize this?
Imagine you have a white piece of paper and your task is to write down the steps you need to actually start doing outreach. Or you actually need to which is crafting your offer, and this has some other steps. What would you do? You would start brainstorming. Okay, what could I do within crafting my offer? I would need to validate my or create a business idea, validate a business idea. I would analyze the target. Need to analyze the target markets. Need to see what kind of lead gen funnels I could use to reach that target market. And in the end, you have a bouquet of ideas or bouquet of steps that you would need to do. The only thing that's missing now is putting these steps into a sequential order. And then once you do it, you already have your story. You already have your red thread that you can follow. And this is, in the best case, something you do before you present it to somebody else.
Okay, so basically you combine all the ideas on one piece of paper. I know I need to figure out an audience. I know I need to figure out what I'm good at. All those things that we were talking about when it comes to crafting your offer. And then you turn this into sequential order that actually makes sense, because it doesn't make sense, for example, to figure out an audience before you don't figure out what you want to offer, and so on and so forth. So you basically organize all of this into sequential order.
In this case, I mean, to be fair, you could also start with an audience and figure out what is the offering that is missing for that audience. Yeah, again, there's also another concept that might be interesting. It's very consultancy-like, which is called MEC. I don't know whether you have heard of it or other people have heard of it, but it's a short term for mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive, which basically means whenever you collect certain elements or collect certain ideas, each of the idea need to be you need to be able to differentiate each of these ideas clearly, but all together they should be mutually collectively exhaustive. So they should cover the entire spectrum of what you want to show. To give you an example, if you have the population of a country like Germany, you can split them by age groups: 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, 80 to 100. Each group is mutually exclusive because there is no overlap to the other group. And altogether, they're collectively exhaustive because they cover the entire population. And with this concept in mind, you can adapt it to any other kind of numeration or category split or steps within a certain process. Make sure that each of the steps are on the same level, mutually exclusive. They don't have any overlap, and make sure that it covers the entire process from A to Z. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And then an interesting thing that you do with it, so you can create these frameworks, and you can, for example, have tracking sheets for lead generation funnels that work in a similar way as you explained. But then I think another great skill is that you are able to inspire the team on a weekly call, on a bi-weekly meeting, to make sure that everybody's focused on the price, so that everyone is focused on reaching the KPIs, the goals that are in that spreadsheet. And then you have a very clear framework during those meetings to review what has been done, figure out optimization levers, and then figure out how to inspire people to continue pushing to get to those KPIs. And that's a great executive skill. That's a great CEO skill. You're also executive personality. So I'm curious, how did you learn it? Were you always like this? Is this also part of your experience, maybe in one of the companies, maybe in Google, maybe somewhere else? I'm curious, how did you get to this?
Starting from the back of your comment, or back of your question, definitely consulting skill. Again, working in consulting, your boss requires you to know what you're doing. They require you having ownership of what you're doing. This is not an environment where you can just say, I didn't know, and then you present something that is unfinished, or you present something that you don't understand, because if you do, you're out. So they really require you to step up the game and be ahead, be on top of what you're doing. And this is also what I expect today from my teammates. Beats whether they are my employees or whether they are on the same level, my co-founders. I mean, you've experienced the same way. I request the same skills from you as I would do with my team members, because in the end, I think it is the key to actually drive projects forward, and in particular in a bigger team, because at some point, as a leadership, as a person in a leadership position, and no matter how many team members you have in your team, you cannot get deeply into all little aspects of each single task. So you need to have people who own their tasks and actually drive things forward.
And so how do you empower team members to take ownership for their tasks?
Well, first of all, I'm communicating openly what my expectations are, or if I see that they don't meet it, I tell them what I'm missing. So transparent communication is one thing, super important, both ways. Me giving personal and some oftentimes also critical feedback, but also I expect others to not hide anything. So I need to see the full picture. Yeah, second, then I tell them what I like the basic. It's part of the communication, but basically, if somebody delivers something in a way that I don't like it, I also tell them, look, please, we talked about it, get it ready for me to look at it. If a slide presentation is not in our standard templates, or our Excel documents, an Excel documents looks like somebody has done it in a 5 minutes break, I'm telling them, look, go back, make it look good, make it look professional, and then I look at it. So based on the feedback, I think they start learning that skill. This is one aspect, and the other thing is, I mean, giving them the responsibility. I mean, I don't like giving my employees or my team step-by-step manuals, so they just need to implement it. I want them to discover what it means taking ownership. So they have their freedom, but whenever they deliver, they get also honest feedback.
So what does it mean to take ownership over your task if you're trying to explain it to your team members?
Know exactly what you're doing. Use your brain. Nothing is without a reason. Even on a slide, if you have a box that is green and the other one is white, why do you use green and white? If you have a category and some bullets, why are the bullets on the same hierarchical level than the headline? Why are they not underneath? Understand everything what you're doing and have a reason for it. There must be a reason for it. Know your numbers. Be able to present what you're working on a proper and professional way, as if your boss was your client. It shows me that you are structured in your head, even though it might cost some extra minutes to prepare it. Make sure to be ready to answer the questions. If your boss or if somebody else has a question, you would need to be the one who who answers it. Be prepared to actually be the go-to guy for this certain topic.
I see. And when you empower people to have this ownership, how do you empower people to actually push? So ownership is one thing. I'm responsible. How do you empower team members to push, to keep pushing, to keep reaching the KPI, to see that KPI as the sacred?
I'm using the whip. No, I'm
That's
kidding.
an HR violation.
Now we do work in sprints these days. So we typically have a 2-week sprint, in which we select only a small amount of tasks that can be finished within these 2 weeks. And within these 2 weeks, we only focus on implementing these tasks. If there's a new task coming up, it will be moved to the backlog. And after this 2 weeks, it might be a part of the next sprint, but not in this one. Within this sprint, we have 3 to 4 meetings, status update meetings. And I'm asking my people shortly, but very precisely, what is the status? Why are we not further? Are we on time, or do we have an issue here? So by doing that, they get reminded every other day that actually they need to keep working on that, and somebody's actually keeping track on it. And ever since we started the sprint, I think we definitely see an increase in development and project development and task development, and it gives us more structure of our project development overall.
And that's the sprints. And how about the regular ongoing operations, like just daily operations, lead generation? How about these? These are not sprints, right? These are ongoing processes.
I think it's about setting realistic goals. To be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of setting unrealistic goals, hyping everybody up about some crazy numbers that can be reached in the future, which might be a long-term goal, but short-term, let's focus on what is relevant right now and what the immediate next goal is. So for example, if I can create 10 setup calls with a lead gen funnel like cold emailing or LinkedIn, I don't need to tell my team, look, we need to get to 100 now. Then the next step might be, okay, let's double it to 20. And this is realistic based on the number of accounts that we have. But have focus on what is important right now. Keep it simple. Don't make things more complex than they are. I think these are two characteristics or 2 elements that are very important. Keep it simple and keep it focused.
I think it's similar to just SMART goals, as cliche as it sounds, but it sounds like what you're talking about is to make goals SMART, specific, what needs to be done. There's clear information, clear procedures, providing with a feedback, measurable. There's tracking sheets. Everything is measured. Everything is understood why there are the things are the way they are, attainable. So you're not hyping those goals up too much. Those are realistic and time bound. That's what it sounds like to me, if I got all the letters from the SMART goals right. But it's as cliche as it sounds like you're in line with this. What do you think about that?
Yes, I mean, not knowing the concept in and out about SMART goals, but it seems like it reflects pretty much what I also have in my mind. Making sure that goals are tangible. Goals need to be tangible. People need to have the feeling that they can reach it, and also when you reach it, that they get the feeling that their work has been performed quite well.
And so you took all this consulting experience and then you crash tested this, starting your business. You first started CDO, then we are collaborating on AceMakers. What is the discoveries you find out about that clashed your perception from corporate world, from consulting world, from big companies with running a digital remote company? What was things that you thought you're going to bring from there, but then it turned out that it's completely different in the real life?
I mean, it's definitely more getting your hands dirty in your startup, number one, or your own company. Number two is you need to understand even more every single step of what you're doing, because in the end, now you are the only one who can answer all the questions. And whereas in the corporate world or in consulting, you always had somebody else above you that you could ask. I think these are the two major differences that in my eyes are also fun to deal with, because now it's you actually have skin in the game and you can decide on your own, but it is a bit, you have more responsibility that things actually work. What clashed? I think I had quite, well, there's one thing, but it's also very consulting focused. And I once worked for a consulting client, and he actually told me the exact same sentence. It's like, look, guys, if I have only consultants in your team like you have, obviously every project will work and every project will be delivered before time. But I have 20 people that are not consultants, and they have a different motivation. They go home at 4, whatever time early, because they're not motivated to stay in the work. So there is a difference between having your consultants as team members and having junior freelancers, junior working students as your team members, and you need to adapt, because they cannot know what consulting work is like, and I would never expect them to be like consultants, but you need to adapt as a manager to make sure that they walk into the same direction as you and into the direction that you actually want them to walk.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Fabian. That was very insightful. And thanks for watching the show. And please join us during the next AceMakers show. See you guys.